Hello, everyone. My name is Ezra, otherwise known as E-Soup. Today we are returning to Ballad of Sword and Wine by Tong Ching. I am so excited. I can't make this judgment call for sure yet because I haven't finished the series, obviously, but this might be one of my favorite Danmei, like, of all time. And so I am so excited to get back into it. It's so good to see you, Lonjade. You said hello. It's so good to be back to a live stream. I can't remember how we left off in Volume 4, but I'm sure I'll continue to be confused throughout the story, and I feel exactly the same way. I have been trying to review what happened leading up towards the end of Volume 4, and I think as I like read certain names and things in the story, like my memory will be jogged. But there are certain things that I'm a little fuzzy on. So just at least for this first stream being back, just bear with me because I'm still trying to get everything straight or get everything gay as it is, I guess. um and it's good to see you, Blue and Psykeen and Henry. Hello. And Cookie. Good to see you all. We get to look at this beautiful cover again. This is the Yowie is taking a break, and we're doing Yuri now. Where we've got the girls on the cover. I believe that's Zhuyin, and then I forget. I think I think I know who this is, but I'm blanking on her name, and I'm also not like 100% sure, so I'm not going to say it yet. But I think we are going to find out. Um, Blue, you said lesbians in your Danmei novel? More likely than you think. Oh no, Psykeen, it keeps killing your messages. Oh, you know what? I have to. That reminds me that I need to look at my live chat and not the top chat because sometimes when you're on top chat, it doesn't show everything. I don't know if that's what's happening to you or not, but um, maybe your internet is being weird. YouTube was also being weird for me. Like yesterday, I tried to upload a video and it went through and said it uploaded the whole thing, but it was just bugging out. So I don't know. YouTube just cannot get its shit together sometimes. Um, Hi Nina. Um, so yeah, it has been far too long. I've been missing all the banter between Xiangyi and Shen Zhuyin. Like truly, their banter is legendary. It's so good. And honestly, I've been missing the politics and the grain as well. Um, so this time around, just so everyone knows, we're reading volumes 5 through 7, and then we're going to have to stop and do something else while we wait for volume 8 to be released, because I didn't realize looking ahead at first that, like, oh, there's going to be a gap of time before volume 8, which is the final volume, even comes out. So in that gap of time, I am going to read 2 volumes of something. My first thought was that I was going to read River Bay Road. I also might read the first half of Scum Villain and then come around and do the second half later. But I'm not totally decided on what I'm going to do during that period of time yet. So we'll see when we get closer to it. But either way, there will be something, and then we'll come back and finish on Volume 8. And I'm so glad Volume 8 got a special edition. Like, and I was looking at my volumes that I have, and this really is like the most beautiful series from Seven Seas. I believe like this is truly some of the most beautiful like Seven Seas cover art of like anything. Oh, hi Zareem, it's good to see you. Oh, Psykeen, you've read Scum Villain 3 times this year. Yeah, Scum Villain, I never really read it. I read the first half of book 1 and that's it. And so that is something I'm going to read on stream eventually. I just don't know yet quite when that's happening. Um, but yeah, I know I'm sort of, as a Danmei fan, I'm sort of lacking in the MXTX department. And so I am eventually going to be using streaming to make up for that. Because I still need to read TGCF as well. Um, oh, Animal Lover, hello. So many people are here. I sort of understand why the group for Case File is smaller. Like, I get it. I've been loving Case File, but I understand why it's a small group for that one. Yeah, Cookie, the covers are by Suto. I think it's Suto. I used to think it was Saint. Like, I thought ST stood for Saint, but I was wrong. They did Arha and Yuwu covers too, and I love the Yuwu covers and the Arha covers as well. Um, so, yeah. Um, I guess I'm gonna get started. I'm so nervous because I'm just like, oh God, what even happened where we left off? But what I was looking over, um, Yao Wen Yu showed up, and I think Shen Zichuan is like talking to Yao Wen Yu, and Yao Wen Yu is like, I want to defeat Shojua, essentially. And I forget exactly how to say his name. But the one who has the girl that he's teaching, who he's trying to get to be the next emperor, that's Shue Shojua. And he did something, and Yao and Yu was trying to go against him. And I think Shen Zichuan was like, hey, Yao and Yu, I want you to, like, be on my side and help me, like, scheme and plot and stuff. And that's about where we left off. Henry, the Huns. Sorry you said defeat and I jumped. Yeah, Blue, it's okay that you remember next to nothing about this. It was a relatively short part of the book. The main things that happened in the previous book were like there were battles. Xiao Qia beheaded one of the Bianxia tribesmen, I believe. And also when he got to Li Bei, he was sort of like not demoted, but he wasn't given the position in the army that he like wanted to have, and that whole thing is really weird. Um, and we're in the midst of like Shen Zichuan and Xiao Qia like not seeing each other very much, unfortunately. Um, so yeah, that's kind of what I remember. So, on what is probably okay, on page 13, we are on chapter 147, which is called Stepmother. The morning after their company rescued Yao and Yu, Shen Zichuan was up before dawn. He draped a white, wide-sleeved outer robe over his shoulders to guard against the chill as he stood at the desk looking over Yao Wenyu's prescription. His body was ravaged by the poison. Teapot in hand, Chao Tianya poured a cup for Shen Zichuan. It's astonishing he's still alive. By the way, I actually forget who hurt and poisoned Yao Wenyu, so if someone could remind me. Shen Zichuan picked up the teacup. Given Shue Xiuzhuo's usual methods, he would have aimed to kill. I guess it was Shue Xiuzhuo. His brows drew together. Is there no hope for his legs? No. Chao Tianya put the lid on the pot. Shen Zichuan couldn't bring himself to drink the tea. He placed the untouched cup back on the table. What about his health? Now that he's here, spare no expense. Get him whatever medicine the physician prescribes. And assign a few meticulous attendants to care for him. We mustn't be poor hosts. Seeing Chao Tianya silent, Shen Zichuan understood. Yao Wenyu's health would never be recovered. While they had been conversing the previous night, Yao Wenyu had repeatedly coughed bloody spittle. Shen Zichuan paused before asking, Is he awake? I'll pay him a visit. When Shen Zichuan arrived, he saw the maidservants waiting in attendance under the eaves, as petrified as cicadas in winter. He lifted the bamboo blinds to enter, his expression placid. The lamps were unlit, and the dimness lent the interior an air of bleak gloom. It was quiet and still within. Shen Zichuan caught only a vague glimpse of Yao Wenyu's lonely back through the screen. Oh, how I have missed this writing. Blue, you remembered why you can't be a first-time reader for QJJ. You cannot miss a single line in this one. Nope. I will be going back to doing what I was doing with it before, which was rereading after each stream as much as I could. Seeming to sense his presence, Yao Wenyu glanced over his shoulder. Vice Commander, please come in. Shen Zichuan lifted the hanging screen and ducked inside. Chao Tianya waited in the outer chamber, leaning against the wall as he listened to the chirps of the caged birds hanging over the veranda. Sizhou will enter autumn soon, and the matter of trade with Huaizhou has been on your Excellency's mind of late. Despite his severe illness and paralyzed legs, Yao Wenyu was unwilling to appear sloppy before anyone and had dressed impeccably. Only the bruises on his hands remained conspicuous, no matter how he tried to hide them. Shen Zichuan appeared not to notice. The matter is indeed worrying. There are disadvantages to approaching them about the purchase of grain, both too early and too late. I've been discussing it with Lord Zhou for days, but we've yet to reach a conclusion. Yao Wenyu gave a slight nod. There are two difficulties with regard to Huaizhou. The first is Jiangqingshan, and the second is the checkpoint at Luoxiao Pass. Without resolving both, it will be hard to establish a trade route between Sizhou, Chazhou, and Huaizhou. But if you ask me, neither of these pose too great a challenge. Shen Zichuan listened with rapt attention. Outside, the birds were chirping. Yao Wenyu looked at the new gauze screens on the window and coughed a few times. When he had caught his breath, he said, when Shui Shoujuo held the post of Chief Supervising Secretary at the Office of Scrutiny for Revenue. God, I forgot how long some of these office names are. The Office of Scrutiny for Revenue. He made the acquaintance of Jiang Qingshan. The two have worked together for many years. They not only made up for the deficit in Juexi's taxes, but turned the 13 cities of Juexi into Great Zhou's granary. Only when Jiang Qingshan is in personal command in Juexi can he ensure the integrity of Juexi's governance and prevent another major incident like the case of Li Bei's tainted grain earlier this year. In other words, Jiang Qingshan must not leave Juexi. Shui Shoujuo will no doubt transfer him back to his original post, so he can continue to serve as Provincial Administration Commissioner. The Vice Commander needn't worry he will be sent north to Huaizhou. During his years as Chief Supervising Secretary of the Office of Scrutiny for Revenue, Shui Shoujuo had enacted many practical policies to help people in the outlying provinces. He was well acquainted with the political situation in all the various regions. This was why, during the reign of Xiande, he was able to work with Hai Liangyi to audit Hua Siqian's accounts. Likewise, although Yao Wenyu had never served in government, he had wandered the land all year long. Having observed every province for himself, he too was aware of political concerns across the empire. Despite their differences in identity and status, both men were more intimately acquainted with the plight of commoners than officials like Kong Qiu and Sen Yu, who resided in Chudu year-round. Regarding Luoxiao Pass, Yao Wenyu turned back to Shen Zichuan. Li Bei has broken free of Chudu's control. The garrison at Luoxiao Pass is the predecessor of the Li Bei Armored Cavalry, and the troops stationed there are all former subordinates of the Prince of Li Bei, Xiao Fengshu. They have long been at odds with Chudu despite their appearance of unity. As it stands, Zhongbo's revival will be nothing but advantageous to Li Bei. Luoxiao Pass should be all too eager to lend a helping hand. I doubt they'll deliberately obstruct you. Blue, you said should the long titles be its own drinking game? Probably, if only because I need water after reading them. Yao Wenyu paused to cough again. Shen Zichuan handed him a cup of tea, and Yao Wenyu thanked him before continuing. If you want to deal with Huaizhou, it's yours. Mr. Chung Feng and Lord Yu's presence will be enough. I believe the most crucial matter at hand is not the north, but Zhongbo itself. The eastern prefectures of Dunzhou and Duanzhou can be left for the moment, but Fanzhou must be secured with all haste. Shen Zichuan and Yao Wenyu conversed until noon, when Fei Sheng came to deliver Yao Wenyu's medicine. As Shen Zichuan stepped out, he looked around at the maid servants lined up under the eaves. He turned to Chao Tianya. You haven't had much to do lately. Let Fei Sheng and Ding Tao stay with me, while you remain here and take care of Yuan Zhuo. Oh, hi, Wolf. Good to see you. I wonder. Shen Zichuan is smart, but I don't know how much he's had a chance to observe of things. I wonder if he has an inkling that Chao Tianya has like a thing for Yao and Yu. I don't Fei Sheng had initially thought this task would fall to him. Chao Tianya was Shen Zichuan's indispensable trusted subordinate, the leader of all his personal guards. He never expected Shen Zichuan to let go of him this easily for the sake of Yao Wenyu. But from another angle, this merely illustrated Yao Wenyu's importance. With Chao Tianya keeping watch, no one would dare neglect Yao Wenyu's care. Well, that makes sense too. As for Shen Zichuan himself, he had a second layer of consideration. Yao Wenyu was a proud man. Although his legs were broken, he was still a distinguished young master of Chudu, and refused to present a sorry sight to others. He hadn't called any of these maids to serve him this morning, because he was unwilling to let them see him in his injured state. Fei Sheng was unsuited to care for him. His penchant for ingratiating himself with his superiors would be counterproductive here and make things awkward for all involved. In contrast, Chao Tianya and Yao Wenyu shared a similar background. There were many things about Yao Wenyu only Chao Tianya could truly understand. Chao Tianya murmured his acknowledgement and stayed. Regardless of Yao Wenyu's pronouncements, any deal with Huaizhou would have to be discussed in detail with Zhou Gui. Shen Zichuan spent the next few days in the prefect's study. Given his acclaimed reputation, Zhou Gui's advisors all hoped to catch a glimpse of the famous Yao Wenyu. But Shen Zichuan declined all their visitation cards. The man had yet to recover from his injuries. Blue, you saw that smirk. Henry, the smirk of Yowie. When Xiao Qiye received the letter informing him of Yao Wenyu's condition, he immediately turned to call for Wu Ziyu. When the young general arrived, Xiao Qiye instructed him to send a military craftsman to Zizhou to design a custom four-wheeled vehicle for the scholar. Wu Ziyu had been with Xiao Qiye for a month. His troops had gradually bonded with the imperial army over their misfit status, and now got along better with them than anyone else. Since the soldiers of the other camps all looked down on them, they didn't waste their breath sucking up to the fighting battalions. Each time the supply squad delivered provisions, the receiving camp would check them. Once everything was confirmed in good order, they retraced their steps to their station at border camp, where they stayed put to avoid conflicts with the other camps. What kind of four-wheeled vehicle? Wu Ziyu, still bare-chested from his ablutions, trailed behind Xiao Qiye. For military sieges, transporting supplies, or... Tantai Hu socked Wu Ziyu on the shoulder and scolded with a laugh. Did he ask for you or a craftsman? Master has given his orders. Just do it. I've got to at least get the details clear so I can prepare materials before they head out, Wu Ziyu retorted. The military craftsmen of Li Bei were renowned for their skill. Their workmanship was known to be excellent, and all the materials they used came straight from the Hongyan Mountains. They wouldn't care to source anything in Zhongbo. For moving about. Xiao Qie had just dismounted and was filthy from head to toe. They'd been on the road for 6 days, returning from the front lines. Everyone was exhausted. Wu Ziyu turned back to relay the command, while Chen Yang followed Xiao Qie into the tent with the rest of his personal guards. The tables and chairs that had originally occupied the tent had been removed, replaced with a newly constructed sand table. Gujin was waiting when they arrived. Gujin. Xiao Qie shrugged off his outer robe and tossed it to Chen Yang. He propped both elbows on the edge of the sand table, eyes already on the lay of the land. Report. Gujin pulled off his helmet, his face drenched in sweat. He pointed to Readalong banner. When we brought the provisions up this time, I made a special trip around Readalong banner with our cavalry. It's just as you suspected. Hu Helu was redeployed to the southeast to make way for someone else. The commander stationed up north now is a man named Hasen. According to Wu Ziyu's information, Hasen is Amor's son, from the Hanma tribe. At the start of spring this year, the Biancha horsemen attacked 3rd Sand Camp. Hasen led Amor's vanguard against Zhao Hui in battle. The 3 great battalions of Liu Yang lost 800 men in that fight. Chen Yang pulled over a folding chair, and Xiao Qie sat. Those are heavy casualties. Remarkably heavy. Gujin pushed aside a strand of damp hair and continued. This man is cunning and ruthless, but not reckless. When the heir was badly injured and Amor had him surrounded on all sides, Zhao Hui rushed over to provide reinforcement, only to end up trapped by Hasen on the plains. The entire squad was thrown into chaos. That man is educated. Wu Ziyu, slipping on his coat as he entered the tent, spoke up from the back. In terms we would use, Hasen is Amor's lawful son. While Amor has over 10 sons, he only remembers a few of them. Of those, Hasen's mother is the most distinguished. She's known as the flower of the Hanma tribe. Amor's control over the Hanma is in large part due to her influence. The status of the son depends on the status of his mother, and Hasen is the son who, by virtue of his mother's status, was raised at Amor's side and personally taught by the man himself. In the future, he will inherit Amor's title of Great Hero. I've only heard this and never seen it myself, but apparently he's well versed in the art of war. Even Hu Helu was afraid of him. Why didn't you say so earlier? Tantai Hu stroked the scar on his face. If I'd known of his prowess, I would have stayed in Readalong banner and not returned. You'd just be serving your head up on a platter. Wu Ziyu came to a stop beside the sand table. After a moment of hesitation, he added, His fighting style is actually pretty similar to our Supreme Commander's. Then he's also ill-suited to be stationed on garrison duty. Xiao Qie set his thumb ring straight. I bet he likes to provoke others into attacking, right? The various generals didn't respond, silently musing that the second young master was rather self-aware. Wolf, did you just say Henry is our resident sickly frail shogun? Oh. Henry, can I set that thumb right back to gay? Gujin coughed lightly. Hasen wasn't commanding the fight against Li Bei before this year. Until then, he'd mainly been stationed in the southeast, where he gave Qidong hell. Hasen was the one who injured Qi Shiyu and almost took his head off. It was him. Tantai Hu gasped. Then I've heard of this man, too. Marshal Qi herself fought him back then. When Qi Shiyu was trapped on the east side of Biancha's camps and couldn't break through, his sons didn't dare deploy troops for a rescue mission. Marshal Qi went to the Qijun, Bianjun, and Cejun commanderies, one after another, to request reinforcements. Cejun vehemently refused. It was the Liu clan of Bianjun who stepped forward to solicit assistance from Suotian Pass. The Grand Marshal gathered these three forces into an army strong enough to venture into enemy territory and rescued her father. That battle had propelled Zhuyin to fame. She had taken advantage of the direction of the wind and burned 10 li of the linked Biancha camp's provisions. It was this that earned her the epithet windstorm through the scorching plains. But the battle had not been an easy one. In truth, the legend that followed omitted part of the story. Hasen had hunted Qi Juyin for thousands of li after she had rescued Qi Shiyu. The return path of the Qidong garrison troops had been paved with blood. Xiao Qiye's eyes brightened slightly. I see. In that case, I know him too. This man was Lu Guangbai's arch-enemy. 3 days ago, Zhao Hui led the Liuyang camps up north to Tudalung Banner to take over Guo Weili's post and face Hasen. Xiao Qiye turned his thumb ring. Right now, we no longer have any reinforcements backing us. Li Bei has only 2 major camps left in the southeast. Guo Weilei's 3rd sand camp and ours. Wolf, you said, am I wrong? No. You are not wrong. And I know there are like a number of us are completely obsessed with Xiao Qiye, so it's completely understandable. I personally can't decide who I love more, Xiao Qiye or Shen Zichuan. No, Henry, you didn't even do anything this time. Not really. Even if it traveled at a snail's pace, the news that we beat back Hu Helu shouldn't have reached Amor's ears by now. Oh, sorry, should have reached Amor's ears by now. This is an opportunity. If he hasn't altered his original plan, the Biancha horsemen will launch an assault on 3rd Sand Camp before the middle of the 8th month at the latest. We need to kick Guo Weili in the ass as hard as we can to keep him awake. Hang on, Wu Ziyu interjected. Guo Weili won't fall asleep. He gets overly excited. That's his problem. He's apt to get ahead of himself and is easily provoked. If Hasen tricks him and leads him away from the camp to slaughter him, then what are we, a bunch of soldiers who move supplies around, supposed to do? Xiao Qiye, Gu Jin, and Tantai Hu turned their heads to him as one and said, Fight. Wu Ziyu wiped spittle off his face. We don't have the authority to move without orders. And not to put a damper on everyone's fighting spirit, but it was partially blind luck we won the battle at 3rd Sand Camp. Hu Helu was another Guo Weili. He took our Supreme Commander's bait, and was defeated with the element of surprise. But now the Biancha soldiers know our strength. Amor won't repeat his mistake. Their next attack will be an all-out assault. The kind they've been launching on the front lines. They'll be fighting a genuine siege war, and will no longer have the advantage. Xiao Qiye got right to the point. That's why, when you kick Guo Weili in the ass, you have to tighten the collar around his neck at the same time. If he dies, it has to be because he was strangled to death. No one was willing to deal with Guo Weili. They had nearly come to blows during the handover of 3rd Sand Camp. Chen Yang and Tantai Hu still held a grudge over the incident with Gu Jin. And Guo Weili didn't give a damn about Xiao Qiye. But the fact was, it was dangerous to leave things like this. If the generals were not of one mind, accomplishing anything would be an uphill battle. Even if Xiao Qiye was a superhuman warrior, the strength of one man was meaningless in the face of thousands of soldiers and horses. What was more, their enemies weren't fools. The old vulture in command was smart as a whip. Tilting his head back, Xiao Qiye stared at the roof of the tent. So damn annoying. Chen Yang, who had been quiet all this while, flipped open his notebook and said solemnly, "And now for a message Gongzi sent from Suzhou," he said. Xiao Qiye's eyes darted over. I'll read it myself. That the marriage alliance between Hua and Qi will take place in 3 days. Chen Yang paused, then continued. reading Shen Lanzhou's words without inflection. It's a joyous event for Marshal Qi to have gained a stepmother. What gift shall we send her? Xiao Qi's smile was thin. Send her our congratulations. That's right. With the marriage and the age gap in said marriage, technically, what's her name? Hua something is going to be Qi Zhuyin's stepmother. Um yeah, okay. All right. Oh yeah, Blue, I know you had been talking about this before. I remember you saying this. You said Xiao Chia is special right now because this is the first gong that I would personally climb in a heartbeat. Yeah, Hua Xiangyi. I think that's her name. Wait, who will get stuck in the washing machine? I think I'm. Oh, I definitely. Whatever that is, definitely out of context. Because I don't understand. Okay, we are on page 23 for. Oh! Okay, that took me. I said, of course. Okay. I'm sorry. I literally thought you were talking about like an object that someone was referring to as a person. Like literally, it took. Okay, it's yeah. No, I got you. I hear you. I thought we were on like a different topic. Okay, we're on page 23 for chapter 148, which is called Victory and Defeat. Somehow I will get through this. When Chao Tianya lifted the curtains at dawn, Yao Wenyu was muttering in his sleep. The bedding was light, and as it was not yet the rainy season in Sizhou, the windows were open, bamboo blinds swaying with the breeze. Yao Wenyu lay in the embrace of the wind, as if pillowed against the rain of spring. Still, the pain in his legs had made him sweat. Several months ago, the storm within the Imperial College had struck the court officials of common origins like a slap in the face. Kong Qiu and Chen Yu had been first affected, but not even Yao Wenyu had been spared. When the storm had blown over, Yao Wenyu had remained under Kong Qiu's protection and rarely appeared in public in Chudu. He had quietly visited Hai Liangyi's final resting place on Mount Bodhi every day until the one his carriage was ambushed. That day, Yao Wenyu had run into Xue Xiuzhuo. Xue Xiuzhuo and Yao Wenyu were fellow students. Even before studying under Hai Liangyi, they'd attended Mr. Changzong's school together. Hai Liangyi had initially favored Yao Wenyu on account of Old Master Yao. By that time, Xue Xiuzhuo had thrice sent visitation cards to Hai Liangyi in the hopes of becoming the esteemed elder student. But all his attempts were in vain. Maybe there was a jealousy thing going on. Yao Wenyu had often heard Shi Hongshuan talk of Xue Xiuzhuo. This common-born son of the Xue clan had lived in straitened circumstances throughout his early years in the Xue residence. Not sure if that's supposed to say strained. After the death of his father, the various cliques within the Xue clan fought tooth and nail over their inheritance of fields and mansions. They stirred up such a ruckus that everyone in Chudu came to know of it, and it was for this reason the other noble clans held them in contempt. Yeah, and Blue, it wasn't spelled like straightened, it was spelled like a river straight, so there was no like GH, which really makes me think that it's a typo. The clan's eldest lawful son, Xue Xiuyi, was a pretentious dilettante who feigned sophistication. For instance, he knew less than nothing about antiques, yet was constantly hoodwinked into spending tremendous quantities of silver on them. Within a scant few years, The Shui clan's wealth was squandered clean away. The collateral branches gradually distanced themselves from the main family, realizing there was no use in trying to get blood from a stone. As for Xiangyi, he spent his days fooling around, aspiring to join the Hanlin Academy, where scholars and advisors debated policy. He had sent a great number of gifts to Hua Siqian, then both Grand Secretary and the Hanlin Chancellor. But his efforts earned him only the cold shoulder. Even the Fei clan's Holian Marquis viewed him with disdain. Everyone had thought this spelled the end for the Shui clan, but it was at this moment that Shui Shoujuo stepped to the fore. He passed all the official examinations and was legitimately initiated into the Hanlin Academy on the strength of his merits. Xiangyi himself had reviewed the exams back then, and he had found Shui Shoujuo's essays on contemporary politics outstanding. It was no fluke that he placed near the top of the ranks. Yao Wenyu, too, had read all of Shui Shoujuo's essays. Shui Shoujuo had been bursting with fresh drive and sharp ideas when he was first inducted into the Hanlin Academy. Some even saw the shadow of Qi Huilian in him. Interesting. He repeatedly submitted memorials to the emperor advocating for resurveying fields outside the capital. This was Qi Huilian's unfinished work. Even within the 8 cities of Chudu, the noble clans occupied commoners' farms and fields, but kept that land off the record, thus avoiding the land tax on thousands of acres of farmland. No number of audits could reveal the situation while Wei Huaigu and his cohort had control over the Ministry of Revenue. Unfortunately, Shui Shoujuo had no powerful backer like the crown prince of the Eastern Palace to protect him. His memorials offended not only Hua Siqian, but also many court officials from the noble clans, as well as the late Pan Rugui. All these people had formed an alliance by the end of the reign of Xiangyi, and were later inextricably tied to Zhongbo's fall. Even the seemingly marginalized Helian Marquis of the Fei clan had encroached on the commoners' fields in Chuancheng. Shui Shoujuo was like a rabbit surrounded by wolves. He made quite a scene in the imperial court, and the denunciations came hard and fast. At the time, Hua Siqian had even used Shui Shoujuo as an excuse to strike out against Xiangyi, who had promoted the young man, as well as the other officials from common households Xiangyi represented. Those days had been difficult ones. Even Yao Wenyu, removed as he was from court and capital, had caught whispers of the tempest. Kong Qiu had been among the officials demoted back then, and several minor low-ranking officials like Liang Cuishan had also been inadvertently caught in the crossfire. Xiangyi managed to dodge the brunt of Hua Siqian's blows. He was shunted back into the position of the lowest-ranking Deputy Grand Secretary of the Grand Secretariat, and reduced his attendance in the imperial court for several years after. The officials from common households were forced into a state of hibernation yet again. Shui Shoujuo's promising career was nipped in the bud, and he was publicly admonished by Hua Siqian. Yeah, you're right. Blue, that was another long title. He had only just entered the imperial court and barely taken his seat in the Hanlin Academy before he was demoted to the lowly position of scribe for the recording of state history. However, it had not been fear that motivated Xiangyi's concession back then. His strategic retreat was rather the beginning of the common officials' preparations to fight back. Xiangyi had long been concerned over the deficit in the state treasury. Instead of raising difficult questions within Chudu, those loyal to him began their investigation with the account books of the surrounding regions. For this task, Xiangyi nominated Shui Shoujuo, and indeed it was at the behest of Xiangyi that Shui Shoujuo went on to become the chief supervising secretary of the Office of Scrutiny for Revenue. Xue Shoujuo did not disappoint him. After that flurry of denouncements, he had grown far more prudent. For 8 whole years, Xue Shoujuo remained the chief's. Oh god. I have to say it again. They're killing me. Ugh. For 8 whole years, Xue Shoujuo remained the chief supervising secretary of the Office of Scrutiny for Revenue. We drink again? Based solely on his evaluations during this period, he ought to have been promoted several times over. Xiangyi had deliberately held him back to be tempered and honed. Yao Wenyu understood Xiangyi's intent all too well. He felt this man must have truly been born to be an official. Not only did Xue Shoujuo harbor no resentment at this treatment, he did a spectacular job in his smaller role. He knew the local political situations in Jueshi and the 8 cities of Chudu like the back of his hand. Zhang Qingshan was no doubt the one to thank for the restoration of Jueshi's granaries to their former abundance. But neither could Xue Shoujuo's contributions be dismissed. On the other hand, Zhang Qingshan held Yao Wenyu in no high esteem. He had never read Yao Wenyu's essays. He and his cohort were focused on practical action. To pragmatic officials like them, even if Yao Wenyu was a true genius, it was Xue Shoujuo who had their regard. Saikin, you said your kidneys are going to be overburdened if you keep this up because they say these titles a lot. I guess I'm going to have to dial it back a little. Blue, these streams make you so hydrated. That's good. Xiao Qia had once mused that Xue Shoujuo was more truly Xiangyi's student than Yao Wenyu was. Xue Shoujuo, not Yao Wenyu, had fulfilled the wishes of Xiangyi and the officials from common households. His shocking testimonial at the Nanlin hunting grounds had forced Hua Siqian to revolt, saving years of painstaking effort by the common officials from going to waste. The Xiande emperor had passed away in short order, the Empress Dowager had been forced to retreat, and the Hua and Pan factions fell to pieces. The nation welcomed a young and healthy new emperor. Alas, fate was against them. Li Jianheng was not cut out to sit on the throne. Still, before Xiangyi's death, Yao Wenyu bore Xue Shoujuo no ill feeling. In his eyes, Xue Shoujuo was in a unique and tenuous position. He appeared to have abandoned the noble clans, yet he still had the support of Shi Hongshuan and others. It was as if he walked a tightrope, and the pawns on either side were all expendable, including himself. It was raining when Yao Wenyu met Xie Shoujuo on Mount Bodhi. They took shelter together in a thatched pavilion, where they settled down to play a game of Wei Qi. Not a word was spoken between them during the game, nor a single glance exchanged. They played for several hours, eventually ending in a draw. That doesn't seem symbolic at all. Before leaving, Xue Shoujuo opened his umbrella and looked back at Yao Wenyu. Will you sit for the spring imperial examinations next year? Yao Wenyu collected the Wei Qi pieces one by one. The court already has a Xue Yanqing. What need is there for a Yao Yuanzhuo? Ooh, first art of the book. It is beautiful. Wait, is it the first art of the book? I think it is. I've already forgotten because I've just... I love this series, but I forgot that, like, reading it takes a little bit of extra effort sometimes. Oh. Yeah. Oh god, the art is so good. The contrasting vibes. Exactly, Wolf. The two of them, one standing and one sitting, listened as the rain poured and the wind blew harder outside the pavilion. A gust billowed through Yao Wenyu's robes. He held the Wei Qi box in one hand and dropped the jade pieces in with the others. looking for all the world like an immortal sitting at leisure, as if he would ride away on the wind in the very next instant. As they spoke, the storm flung a single speck of mud onto his green robe, marring the fluttering fabric and reducing him to a mere mortal. Once again, that doesn't seem symbolic at all. Shui Xiuzhuo glanced down at the speck of mud. When teacher was seriously ill, Kong Qiu paid him a visit. You counseled him in the main hall, but the one you plotted against was Han Cheng. He looked up at Yao Wenyu's face as if seeing him in a new light. At that moment, I realized that's all there is to Yao Wenyu. The final Wei Qi piece in Yao Wenyu's fingers slid into its box. You're right. That's all there is to Yao Wenyu. A year ago, teacher thought opportunity had come knocking. With the Tianchen Emperor's support, those from common households could show the court what they were made of. But in the end, it was wishful thinking, Shui Xiuzhuo said calmly. The war between the two sides has raged for years, yet few of the issues that divide them have been resolved. 20 years ago, Qi Huilian proposed a survey of the local farm fields to prevent the noble clans from occupying the land and to restore the regular collection of field taxes. To date, this proposal has yet to be implemented. What has Great Zhou accomplished under teacher's venerated principles of stability? In the third year of Xiande, Juishi was struck by natural disaster, Yao Wenyu replied. The state treasury was empty, and Hua Siqian was unwilling to provide aid to the 13 cities. Tens of thousands of commoners were left destitute and homeless. It was Jiang Qingshan who took it upon himself to unlock the granaries and risked his head taking on insurmountable debt. If not for the assistance of the moderates in Chudu, who audited the accounts and forced Hua Siqian's hand, all the grain in Zhongbo would have streamed into the pockets of the noble clans. If saving one person is not considered an achievement, and neither is saving tens of thousands, then, in your opinion, how many must be saved for it to be considered an accomplishment? The moderates who saved tens of thousands in Jueshi are the same ones who allowed the tragedy that took place in Zhongbo. A physician saves one man, but it's the court official who saves the masses. Shui Xiuzhuo had turned his back on Yao Wenyu as he spoke. Now he clenched his fists and turned around. How many years has it been? Yet teacher was still fixated on the conflict between the common-born officials and nobility. Look at Kong Qiu. Look at the current students of the Imperial College. Are the noble clans the only ones drawing lines based on family status? The riots in the Imperial College touched off at the slightest spark. Yet Kong Qiu still has yet to realize that those under his leadership from common households hold the same prejudices against officials from noble clans as the noble clans do toward them. The moderates' gradual monopoly of the Imperial College runs entirely counter to your grandfather's original intent to revive the institution. Yao Wenyu met his eyes. You plotted to murder the Tianchen Emperor and incite conflict between factions, which put the Grand Secretariat in a perilous position. You instigated Han Cheng to ambush Xiaoqiye and forced Li Bei to turn, giving the Empress Dowager the opportunity to consolidate military power in Qidong. You enabled her to exercise the authority of the Son of Heaven, then gave the Emperor's daughter a hand up to the throne. You calculated every step meticulously, drawing everyone into your web. Yao Wenyu rose to his feet, black and white pieces tumbling to the ground. You forced our teacher to his death. Yeah, Blue. I'm sure no IRL social commentary is happening here. The clatter of Wei Qi pieces falling mimicked the shattering storm, so sharp it could cut one to the quick. Rain pelted Shui Xiuzhuo's arm where it was exposed to the tempest. He met Yao Wenyu's gaze without the slightest flicker. They were students of the same school and the same teacher, educated under the same man's tutelage, guided by the same mentor, and concerned with the same topics in their essays and examinations. Yet they had grown to be polar opposites. One day I will die, Xue Xiuzhuo said hoarsely. Whether I am forsaken and deserted by all, or bring ruin upon myself, I will walk this path to the end. Then you will stop at nothing to kill others and yourself. Yao Wenyu released his grip on the last stone he held, letting it fall. You can't save all the people of the land. The restoration of Great Zhou is nigh. Xue Xiuzhuo took a step closer. The old school nobles have been purged. The leaders from common households have all suffered a setback, and the calamity that was the eunuch clique has been eradicated. With the Grand Secretariat, Empress Dowager, and heir apparent holding one another in check, the rising talents in the imperial court will surge to the fore. Great Zhou is about to have fresh blood coursing through its veins. Yao Wenyu, I die without fear. Even if I am remembered only in infamy, condemned by posterity, I will begrudge nothing. I've thrown myself into the flames ignited by teacher. I do it for myself. With this, Xue Xiuzhuo opened up his umbrella again and turned around to step into the rain. I apologize if you can hear that. There's people like mowing the lawn or leaf blowing or something outside. Yao Wenyu remained motionless. You've won for now. He raised his voice. You've won one game. But this is far from a victory. The land is in chaos, and the variables are endless. You can't make a pawn of everyone, Xue Xiuzhuo. The rain fell in torrents, as if venting the pent-up rage of the skies onto the world. The green bamboo planted by Xiangyi's grave snapped in the storm, and muddy water flowed down the slope, like a face smothered in bitter tears. Today it's a draw. The victor has yet to be determined. Xue Xiuzhuo stopped in his tracks, but did not look back. But as you say, there's already a Xue Yanqing in the world. What need is there for a Yao Yuanzhuo? You and I do not walk the same road. After tonight, our paths need not cross again. This game isn't finished, Yao Wenyu said. There is no such thing as a draw where I'm concerned. Xue Xiuzhuo's shoulders shook as if with laughter. He looked back for the last time and pinned his gaze on Yao Wenyu. A curtain of rain fell between them. Suddenly it seemed they had always been separated by a deep chasm, like the reflections of heaven and earth. They could never be fellow travelers. Yao Yuanzhuo and the always obstructed Xue Yanqing. From their lineage to Xiangyi's choice of pupil, Xue Xiuzhuo had never once won. Yet, at this moment, he was the picture of condescending pity. You've lost. And he doesn't say that. That is in italics. There is a scene break. The carriage raced down the mountain road, surrounded by the clamor of barking dogs. Their pursuers spurred their galloping horses closer. Yao Wenyu's coachman was already dead. Helpless to control the carriage, Yao Wenyu braced himself against its sides as it rattled haphazardly down the slope. Stray arrows socked into the carriage from behind, lodging in the wood. The next volley sank into the ground beneath the horse's hooves, and the animal snapped its traces in panic. One of his pursuers leapt onto the back of the carriage. A dagger pierced the carriage's curtain and sliced it open to stab inside. There was no one else on Mount Bodhi. Yao Wenyu's death was set in stone. From the moment he'd gone up the mountain today, Xue Xiuzhuo had never considered letting him walk down alive. The carriage tumbled into a ditch, collapsing on all sides. Yao Wenyu's stomach lurched. The horse, in desperate pain, struggled to right itself as Yao Wenyu freed the reins and mounted it. The vicious growls of the dogs panicked the horse, which fled on a lame leg. Clinging to the horse's neck without a saddle, Yao Wenyu was nearly swiped off by the branches whipping past amid the jolts and bumps. Yet the horse had only galloped for a moment before an arrow found one of its remaining good legs, and Yao Wenyu went flying. The chase had brought them to the foot of the mountain. The leader of the group was worried they'd miss their chance if Yao Wenyu kept running. He looped a rope around Yao Wenyu's ankles and dragged him over the ground toward their own carriage. The rain had subsided, but the sky had not yet fallen dark. To finish the job, they broke both Yao Wenyu's legs with their scabbards and stuffed him into the carriage. No sooner had they bundled him in than the sound of hooves rose on the mountain road below. Realizing they'd soon have company, the leader yanked the carriage curtains down and barked, "Put your blades away." The new party arrived in a display of ostentatious extravagance. The escorts on both sides of the carriage were men from the 8 great battalions, whose numbers filled the narrow bridle path. The leader of the attackers signaled for their driver to pull the carriage to the side, and the group deferentially formed a line at the edge of the path to make way for the approaching party. Within the closed-up carriage, Yao Wenyu's mouth was gagged. His body spasmed with pain, but his mind remained clear. Back soaked with sweat, he knocked his forehead hard against the frame of the carriage. When the leader heard the knocking from inside, he glared at his subordinates. One promptly whipped the horse several times, bellowing at the poor animal to cover the sound. But the newcomers did not leave. The curtains of the carriage in the middle of the procession lifted to reveal Commandery Princess Zhao Yue, her hair swept up in the fashion of a married woman. A fine furrow appeared between her brows. "Keep the noise down, please. There's an infant in the carriage." Yao Wenyu instantly recognized her voice. A muffled cry escaped his throat, and he slammed his forehead against the walls until it was bloody. Commandery Princess Zhao Yue looked sharply toward the carriage. "Is someone inside? Tell your master to come out and see me." By now, the leader had recognized her himself. He made his obeisance as he scrambled for an excuse. "My master's mistress is inside. She's gone mad and is threatening to take her own life. We couldn't possibly let her out, lest she offend your eyes. Please go on ahead, your highness." Commandery Princess Zhao Yue knit her slender willow brows. "This is the resting place of the Secretariat Elder. What nonsense. Men, lift the curtains of that carriage." At this, the leader changed tactics, whipping out his authority token, which bore the copper seal of the military. "We're on official business with warrants in hand, acting under the orders of the Ministry of Justice. Without the proper authority, no one may meddle in the affairs of the court at their whim, your highness. Even if your father, the Hulian Marquis himself, were here today, we wouldn't allow him to open the curtain." Since marrying into the Pan clan, the Commandery Princess had been living in Dancheng. After Xiangyi's death, she followed her husband to the capital. She and her husband had initially arranged to visit the Yao Manor today, but upon arrival, the couple had learned Yao Wenyu had yet to return from his trip into the mountains. Zhao Yue knew Yao Wenyu's character. He would never miss an appointment without reason, and so climbed into her carriage to look for him herself. She could see at a glance that this group was up to no good. The leader felt certain there was nothing the Commandery Princess could do. No one from the Fei clan held any position of importance in court. The Hulian Marquis and his family couldn't afford to go around rashly offending people. He sneered. "If your highness refuses to go, we'll take our leave first." Yet before he could turn, the guards from the 8 great battalions gripped the hilts of their blades. A slender finger emerged from within the carriage and gently lifted the curtain, revealing a coil of hair adorned with flowers. The narrow-sleeved palace gown of a court lady flowed neatly down to pool on the floor of the carriage. The toes of an exquisite pair of satin shoes peeked out from the hem, while eastern pearls shone along the edge of the woman's collar. Her voice was soft and gentle. If the commandery princess doesn't possess the authority, what about me? The leader was still frozen in place when he heard a guard thunder. The esteemed Third Lady Hua is on board. Kneel. Who in Shudu, besides the precious apple of the Empress Dowager's eye, would dare answer to the address of Third Lady Hua? Cold sweat sheened the man's brow as he sank to the ground and kowtowed. I deserve 1,000 deaths for obstructing the Third Lady's way. That is the end of the chapter. And it is exactly 4 o'clock, so it is perfect timing for me to go take a 10-minute break. That was very hot. You are correct, Wolf. I love smart women. I love that this Danmei has smart women. I'm really glad that there's not just, like, kind of the thing with, like, stereotypical female characters. Like, just sort of being there on the sidelines and, like, not really being as important. I really appreciate this. So, I'm going to take a break. When we come back, we will be on page 37 for chapter 149, which is called Third Lady Hua. Hello, I am back. I am back, and the first thing I see when I look at the chat is Blue saying, I'm forever stained by Meat Bun's filth, SMH. Oh, you said this song reminds me of Xie Jing Chung. Oh, I love that. That's beautiful. And yes, we are being spoiled by QJJ. Wolf, you said the relationship chart is gonna be hella convoluted. If so, if Shi Zhuyin and Xiangyi are a thing, yes. Oh my god, yes. Yeah, Blue, you said I'm looking forward to Maddie potentially reading this so she can create that crazy board. I am so looking forward to that, honestly. Henry, you've missed the QJJ break room. Yeah. I'm gonna have to start adding quotes again, and I'm gonna try to actually like keep it updated, unlike the case file one. Okay. So we are on page 37 for chapter 149, which is called Third Lady Hua. It was dark in Chudu, and lanterns had been lit on both sides of the streets. Hua Xiangyi's carriage passed through the city gates and drove straight for the Pawn Manor. She told her attendants only that she'd be talking late into the night with Zhao Yue, then sent someone into the palace with the message that she would return later. Commodary Princess Zhao Yue's path to marriage had not been smooth. Her father, the Helian Marquis, had initially set his mind on Yao Wenyu for her groom. Then, after the Empress Dowager's intervention, turned his attention to Xiao Chiye. In the end, both prospects had fallen through. The Marquis had found this humiliating. Commandary Princess Zhao Yue was the lawful daughter of the Fei clan, yet she was no longer young. She had to be married without further delay. Around this time, it happened that Han Chung came calling. The Hulian Marquis had leapt at his chance, and betrothed her to a son of the Han clan. But this marriage, too, was doomed. His son, the young Marquis Fei Shi, was an idle loafer who was well aware that the young man from the Han clan was one too. In fact, he was even less competent than Han Chung's younger brother, Han Jin. Fei Shi held him in contempt, finding him unworthy of his elder sister. He gathered some of his friends and made a scene in the pleasure quarter, scuttling any chances of the union coming to fruition. The Hulian Marquis now found he couldn't control his own son. In desperation, he considered several options before landing on Pan Lin's younger brother, Pan Yi, the second son of the Pan clan, born of the first concubine. The two families knew each other inside and out, and they were both members of the 8 great clans. Fei Shi carefully observed his potential brother-in-law for a time, and only after he was satisfied with the groom did Commandery Princess Zhao Yue finally marry. Pan Yi was a refined and scholarly man who'd originally held the post of Director of the Bureau of Waterways and Irrigation under the Ministry of Works. After Pan Xiangyi survived the public ditches case and his son Pan Lin took over the disgraced Wei Huaigu's post in the Ministry of Revenue, Pan Yi was promoted and transferred back to the Pan clan's hometown to serve as commandant of the garrison in Dancheng. He was fond of reading and had deep respect for Yao Wenyu's talents, and thus had happily accompanied his wife to pay Yao Wenyu a visit. Though he still bore the title of vice minister, Pan Yi's elder brother Pan Lin was now fully overseeing the Ministry of Revenue. So much had happened in Chudu since the beginning of the year that the official document of appointment from the imperial court elevating him to minister still had yet to be issued. When Pan Lin came back from court, he found Pan Yi waiting at home for his wife to return. The two brothers were conversing in the front hall when an attendant emerged from the inner courtyard with a message. When he heard it, Pan Lin was taken aback. "The third lady wants to see me?" Xiangyi was yet unmarried, and was the Empress Dowager's favorite besides. The guards who accompanied her in and out of the palace were not to be underestimated. It was near impossible for men outside the family to get so much as a glimpse of her. Even their father, Pan Xiangyi, had to await a summons if he hoped to see her. Pan Lin had no idea why he'd been called, but he didn't dare dally. He hastily rose alongside Pan Yi as the two hurried over. The moment Pan Yi entered the courtyard, he saw his wife weeping under the eaves. Spotting a physician inside, Pan Lin started in shock, thinking Xiangyi had been injured. He rushed forward at once. "Sister-in-law, what happened?" Commandery Princess Zhao Yue's eyes were red from crying. She clutched her handkerchief, but before she could get a word out, dissolved into sobs again. She covered her face and turned away as Pan Yi stepped forward to coax her, taking her hands. "My dear, what's all this?" From inside, they heard Xiangyi's gentle tones. "The vice minister and the commandant are both like elder brothers to me. There's no need to observe the formalities so scrupulously. Please come in to talk." Upon hearing Xiangyi, Pan Lin was immediately relieved. She didn't sound injured. He hesitated a moment, exchanging a glance with his brother, then lifted the curtain and entered. A screen was set up inside, behind which Xiangyi sat in the seat of honor, facing the door. Both men knelt and spoke in unison. These humble subjects pay their respects to the third lady. "Honored brothers, please rise," she said. Through the beaded curtain on one side of the room, Pan Lin saw the physician kneeling at someone's side. "Who's injured?" After a moment of silence, Xiangyi answered. "The man lying inside is none other than the Grand Secretary's beloved pupil, Yao Wenyu." "Yuan Zhuo?" Pan Yi's first exclamation was one of delight. But his face fell the moment the name left his mouth. Good heavens! Was he hurt on Mount Bodhi? "I heard the bridle paths on the mountain have been in poor shape for years. It's a perilous trip on rainy days." The Commandery Princess came to stand nearby and wiped her tears. "My cousin wasn't hurt in an accident. He was attacked." She was so overwhelmed with sorrow she could hardly speak. "His legs. What will become of him?" Pan Lin's mind was racing. He currently stood at the critical juncture before a promotion. Once the official appointment was issued, he would only have to wait a few years for positive evaluations to make up for the impeachments he had received during the public ditches case. He had a bright future ahead of him. Moreover, Yao Wenyu's position was unique. Given the political undercurrent presently surging through the imperial court, Pan Lin was hesitant to involve himself in this matter. Any move he made might brand him a supporter of one faction or another. But he truly respected Hai Liangyi. After a moment's pause, Pan Lin said, Mount Bodhi is on the outskirts of Chudu, and there are patrol squads both inside and outside the capital. Yuan Zhua's unfortunate encounter is a serious matter. Third Lady, please tell me the details. Upon seeing that he neither sought excuses nor evaded the issue, Xiangyi knew she'd come to the right man. Pan Lin had a short temper. The only friend he got along with was Fei Shi, and the person he could least stand was Xiangyi. After the public ditches case, when Xiangyi hosted a banquet to celebrate the conferment of his noble title, Xiangyi had humiliated Pan Lin in every way possible. Pan Lin had made a vow then. Even if he should starve to death, he would never take a single crumb from the same table as the Shui clan. He had refused any contact with the Shui clan since. Shui Shoujuo was at the height of his popularity in Chudu, due to his influence over the heir apparent. Even so, Pan Lin had never paid him a visit. Xiangyi had helped the Pan clan out of their predicament during the public ditches case, saving Pan Xiangyi from dying as a scapegoat for Wei Huaigu. And unbeknownst to Pan Lin, the ditches diagram he had gifted Xiangyi in repayment had become the key that helped Chao Tianya and the rest escape Chudu. Even when Xiangyi had been besieged by Han Cheng and accused of regicide, Pan Lin had been in no hurry to distance himself, while his father, Pan Xiangyi, was a fence-sitter who swayed whichever way the wind blew. Pan Lin was worthy of the description upright. Xiangyi recounted how they'd happened upon Yao Wenyu in hushed tones. Eventually she said, Would the vice minister be willing to hear what I have to say on this matter? This humble subject is all ears, Pan Lin answered. Xiangyi glanced over at the beaded curtain. This storm raging in Chudu is far from over. The tragedy that befell Yuan Zhuo today was no coincidence. The vice minister knows the affairs of the imperial court better than me. The Grand Secretary's fatal remonstration will be remembered as Great Zhou's greatest regret. Yuan Zhuo is not merely the Grand Secretary's beloved pupil, but also the Yao clan's beloved son. His reputation may be in tatters after the Imperial College riots, but his talents and knowledge persist, as does the integrity of his character. His resolve will only grow stronger after this tribulation. There's no reason he can't turn things around in the future and lead the scholars of the land in reclaiming the glory of the Imperial College. Pan Lin was quiet. After a long silence, Xiangyi continued. After tonight, Yuan Zhuo must leave Chudu as soon as possible. I'm about to be married far away in Qidong. So close to the wedding, it's difficult for me to move freely about the city. Even with my rank, I can't openly see him out of the capital. Rising to her feet, Xiangyi slowly knelt in a formal bow to Pan Lin, a bent silhouette across the screen. Pan Lin paled. He strode forward and exclaimed, This won't do. Third Lady, please rise. But Xiangyi did not raise her head. Yuan Zhuo was blessed to have been taught by one wise teacher after another. I've read every one of his essays. At the moment, the heir apparent has been confirmed but not yet crowned, and the Hanlin Academy sits empty. The tripartite balance of power Auntie leads is not sustainable, and Kongqiu can barely keep his head above water. I may be only a girl, but I know that men of such outstanding talent are 1 in a million. She paused, then solemnly continued, Chengzhi, please. If it wasn't clear before, her use of his courtesy name now made it evident her plea came from the bottom of her heart. Blue, you said, I love how the alliances are all so tangled together that it's hard to see whose faction anyone could belong to by the end. I agree, like, this book series, it's very difficult to like figure out whose side people are going to end up on, or sometimes even whose side someone is on in the first place. And you're kind of like, I feel like there's certain characters where I'm like, I'm rooting for you as long as you don't cross my main characters, and I don't know if you will or not, and I'm scared. Pan Lin couldn't help feeling ashamed upon seeing how far Hua Xiangyi was willing to go to save Yao Wenyu. Third Lady, please rise. I also respect and cherish Yuan Zhuo's talents. Of course, helping him is the right thing to do. Tomorrow morning, Yuan Zhuo will follow my younger sister-in-law out of Chudu and recuperate in Dancheng. After he recovers from his injuries, he can decide what he'd like to do. Remembering Hai Liangyi, he went on, although the Grand Secretary didn't share our political views, I still esteemed him. How courageous and upstanding it was for a civil minister to remonstrate with his death. Even if only for the sake of the Grand Secretary's memory, I'd be willing to lend a hand. The perpetrator of this violence must already know Yuan Zhuo escaped death today, Hua Xiangyi replied. To be safe, I'd like to ask the Vice Minister to think of a way to keep his departure secret. I have a solution for that already, Pan Lin assured her. It's getting late. I must return to the palace. Hua Xiangyi stood and let the maidservant support her as she crossed to the beaded curtain and gazed in at Yao Wenyu, his face pale as a sheet. In the end, she said nothing but simply took her leave. 2 hours after Hua Xiangyi's departure, a corpse wrapped in a straw mat was carried through the back doors of the Pawn Manor. The man who came to dig for news in the outer courtyard didn't get all the details, only that a beggar the commandery princess had taken pity on died of sickness in the middle of the night. The people sent to pursue Yao Wenyu, who had been crouching in wait for hours outside the manor, tailed the corpse all the way to the public burial grounds. After examining it, their leader found that the body was a match for Yao Wenyu's physique. Even the wounds on his legs were identical. There was some concern given that the face of the corpse was disfigured. However, he bore the same wounds on his lips as Yao Wenyu. Not daring to tarry, the leader withdrew with his men and returned to report the news. The next day, Commandery Princess Zhao Yue and Pan Yi departed for Dancheng. The princess had very recently given birth to their child, and there were so many nannies and maidservants accompanying her that they traveled with almost 20 carriages. As for Pan Lin, he left as usual to attend morning court. He saw Kong Cho and Chen Yu standing nearby as he waited at the foot of the stairs, but, worried he was being watched, did not approach them. Nowadays, the heir apparent rose hours before dawn and attended classes at sunrise. The tutors the Grand Secretariat had arranged for her were hand-picked scholars and academicians from the Hanlin Academy, and her classes did not conclude until midday. Meanwhile, the Empress Dowager continued holding court behind the screen. In practice, Li Jianting had merely switched from attending classes in the Shui Manor to attending classes in the palace. As long as the Grand Secretariat didn't approve her ascension, she would continue to be a student. The Ministry of Rites had long been making preparations for the coronation, but with Kong Cho and the others delaying it, the grand ceremony now seemed impossibly far away. Xue Xiuzhuo still personally taught Li Jianting. While the girl lacked the authority to participate in the affairs of government, she had the right to attend court and listen. She slept very little. After her morning classes, she would take a short nap, then sit in on the Grand Secretariat Council led by Kong Cho and Xue Xiuzhuo in the afternoon. All matters pertaining to the 6 ministries were reported on in the Grand Secretariat. Li Jianting rarely spoke up as they stood and deliberated over these matters of policy, but her attitude was always respectful. Whether for class or council, She always arrived before the ministers and waited deferentially under the eaves of Mingli Hall. Kong Chou and Sen Yu had initially disliked Li Jianting, but even they had to concede that the girl was sincere. Her desire to learn was far keener than Li Jianheng's had ever been. When court adjourned, Pan Lin boarded his carriage. As he prepared to lower the curtain, he spied Xue Xiuzhuo walking through the palace gates with a group of officials. The two men's eyes met for an instant. Pan Lin nodded calmly and managed a slight bow before letting down the curtain and speeding away. And there is a scene break. Chao Tianya shut the window with a soft thud. Yao Wenyu woke instantly. It was as if he had only just stepped out of the rattling carriage. He felt stifled by the heat. He slid his wary gaze across the room and saw Chao Tianya. "It's early yet," Chao Tianya said. "You can sleep a little longer." "The events I dreamed of were not ones I'd like to look back on," Yao Wenyu responded, his expression unreadable. Chao Tianya poured himself tea and took a sip, then raised his cup toward Yao Wenyu. "Want some?" After a moment of silence, Yao Wenyu replied, "There's no taste in tea. How about some wine?" "You've yet to recover from your injuries. No wine." As Chao Tianya spoke, he removed a flask of xiaojiu from his waist, shook it a few times, and twisted it open. "I'll drink it for you. You can watch." When Chao Tianya lowered the flask, Yao Wenyu commented, "Excellent wine." Chao Tianya's unruly hair slipped down and covered his eyes. His stubble, which he'd allowed to grow out, had yet to be shaved clean. He stroked it and said, "It's worth but a few strings of copper coins, far from excellent. Once you're better, I'm willing to spend a hefty pile of silver to let you taste the good stuff." Blue, you said, "Why does this feel sexually charged?" And I agree. He said, "Bring the wine, Chang Jinjiu." Yes, that's what that, like, literally means, right? Chang Jinjiu, it's like, bring the wine, or something like that. The corner of Yao Wenyu's lips lifted slightly. Leaning against the table, Chao Tianya looked at him. "The military craftsman from Libei will arrive with your chair in a few days. We can go out and see the autumn scenery of Zizhou." Henry, you said yes, it's in reference to the title of that poem we read in Yuwu. Okay. Okay, gotcha. Yao Wenyu's smile melted away in an instant. He looked out the window. The wind chimes were tinkling under the eaves. He was quiet for a very long time before saying, "May I trouble you to ask the Vice Commander to prepare a generous gift on my behalf for the wedding between Hua and Qi tomorrow? Third Lady Hua saved my life. Please thank her for me as well. Don't tell her anything else. Just let her know I'm fine." Chao Tianya agreed that he would. Yao Wenyu let his gaze go distant. "You can play the chin now." "Oh, Henry, you said, I will remind everyone the poem is about feeling trapped and knowing you have talents that you can't express." Oof, indeed. When Shen Zichuan awoke, he heard the faint sound of chin music from the courtyard. "Chao Tianya is a man of hidden talents," Fei Sheng quipped. Shen Zichuan tilted his head. When the Chao clan fell apart, all the delicate sensibilities he'd possessed as a young master vanished with it. He had a difficult time during his exile. He had to fight stray dogs for food and care for his elder sister-in-law at the same time. All he has left from the old days is that 7-stringed chin of his. He cleans and smooths it every day. It's his most prized possession. But he never plays for the entertainment of others. This is what remains of his young master's pride. Fei Sheng had seen the 7-stringed chin, but not even Ding Tao dared touch it. This matter of gentleman's pride was not a thing he understood, but he'd never disparaged it. He had worked with Chao Tianya in the embroidered uniform guard for years. He might have wanted to take Chao Tianya's place, first in Chudu and then in Suzhou, but that was just business. Even he had to acknowledge Chao Tianya's ability. So, I'm getting from that. He never plays for anybody's entertainment, except for Yao and Yu. He never lets anyone touch his chin, except for Yao and Yu, because when they previously met, Yao and Yu was like trying to play it, and then he was like, I'll teach you. Yep, they recapture their past glory together. Well, that is the end of the chapter. We have one more for today. We are on page 47 for chapter 150, which is called Treacherous Minister. Yeah, Blue, you said, remember how intense for no reason their first meeting was? I know, it was so... It's so charged. The death of the Tianchen emperor was still very recent. According to custom, the marriage between Hua and Qi ought to have been postponed while the nation mourned. But since Xiao Qie had rebelled and fled Chudu, Chudu had favors to ask of Qidong. The Empress Dowager and Grand Secretariat deliberated at length before eventually deciding Hua Xiangyi might be married in the 7th month, only slightly too soon for propriety. The Empress Dowager spared no expense for the nuptials. The dowry she prepared, packed into endless wagons and carriages, stretched far longer than the typical 10 li. The Ministry of Rites made all the arrangements in accordance with the wedding protocols for a princess. Han Chung himself led the extensive ceremonial guard that sent her off, and the number of nurses and maidservants in her retinue was too many to count. Hua Xiangyi boarded the carriage. Just as it was about to depart, the Empress Dowager took one stumbling step after it, wishing to call out to her. But even now, she was mindful of her dignity. She merely held on to Aunt Liu Xiang's arm and murmured as the eastern pearls in her ears swayed, "My darling." After leaving Chudu, the procession rolled toward Qidong along Chuancheng's public roads, passing through the outskirts of Chazhou along the way. Worried they'd face trouble from the Chazhou bandits, Han Chung had brought along men from the 8 great battalions for protection. But the journey was surprisingly uneventful. Chazhou's prefect, Luo Mu, even sent his own congratulatory gifts when they passed by. From Chazhou, they continued south, to where Zhuyin waited on the Qidong border. Speaking of Zhuyin, Han Chung asked Hua Xiangyi through the curtain, his horse nearly bumping the carriage. The third lady hasn't met her before, right? A soft sound of affirmation rose from within. Han Chung loved flaunting his experience. He perked up at once. Let this old subject share a few stories with the third lady. Although Zhuyin is a woman, she's not easy to get along with. The third lady typically resides in the inner palace, so you're probably not familiar with her ferocious demeanor when she enters the capital every year. The Ministry of Revenue was in a tight spot during the reign of Xiande, yet she dared command her soldiers to obstruct Minister Wei's sedan to ask for the military salaries of Qidong's troops. But the Ministry of Revenue genuinely had nothing to give her. After that, she sought out a bunch of ruffian loan sharks in Chudu. She was seen hanging out with them in the streets. Hua Xiangyi had only ever seen Zhuyin through a screen. During that court officials' feast, among the all-male attendants of civil ministers and military generals, Zhuyin had been a particular exception. She hadn't stood out much during her early years in Qidong. Before Qi Shiyu handed over his commander's seal, everyone had speculated over which of her brothers would take up his mantle. And after her expedition to rescue Qi Shiyu, Zhuyin was first denied entry into the capital. Then the imperial court dragged the matter of her conferment on for several months, on the grounds that her military achievements were yet to be confirmed. When that had been resolved, the Jade Dragon Terrace fiasco broke out just before the day of her conferment. Even with the support of the Empress Dowager, Qi Zhuyin merely took over Qi Shiyu's commander's seal and did not inherit his title. In other words, every battle Qi Zhuyin fought today only accumulated prestige for Qidong and not for herself. If she never married, she would be considered merely a daughter of Qi once retiring from the front lines, with no noble title to her name. Conversely, her brothers would be set for life with both position and inheritance, as long as they begat sons as soon as possible. Han Chung was still talking, but from Hua Xiangyi's silence, it seemed she had fallen asleep in the carriage. Gradually, Han Chung felt her disinterest and fell silent, a little embarrassed. The wedding procession traveled until evening, when a streak of red, more vivid than the sunset, emerged on the horizon. Hooves thundered amid the billowing waves of heat, revealing ranks of light cavalry stretching far into the distance, all dressed in robes of red. The military flag of Qidong fluttered in the wind like a dragon soaring toward them. A storm of yellow sand swirled up and slapped Han Chung with a faceful of dust. Qi Zhuyin's deputy, Qi Wei, was the first to dismount, brandishing the flag as he called, "Ready!" The light cavalry behind him dismounted and went down on one knee in perfect synchrony, their armor clanging as they saluted and chorused, "A most respectful welcome to the mistress." These two thunderous roars left the palace maids from Chudu so shaken their hearts were pattering. Even Han Chung's hand twitched toward his chest. Waving the dust out of his face, he frowned. "Where's the marshal?" The sound of hooves circled toward them. By the time they looked around, a rider in red already stood before the carriage. Oh my god, the art. Oh god. Okay, we're not looking at the art yet, but there's art on the next page. I am excited. Before Han Chung could stop her, Qi Zhuyin extended the sheath of her blade and lifted the curtain, tilting her head to peer inside. Hua Xiangyi had not yet covered her head with the veil. Wearing her bridal phoenix coronet of gold and jade, she stared at Qi Zhuyin in shock, her chest pounding, unsure what Qi Zhuyin was going to do. "Well, hello," Qi Zhuyin greeted her. "Stepmother." Stunned, Han Chung rushed forward to pull the curtains down. "We have yet to arrive in Cangjun Commandery," he scolded. "How can the marshal lift the third lady's curtain?" "I'm just taking a look." Chastised, Qi Zhuyin retracted her hand. "How many times did you rest on the way? You should have arrived yesterday." I think it's time to look at the art. Wait. Here we go. Okay. Absolutely banger art. Look at them. I was so hoping that the art on the next page would be them, like, meeting for the first time and looking at each other. And we are so blessed. Oh my goodness. Blue, you said, "Well, hello, stepmother," is the gayest thing I've heard in my life. This Henry, this feels like a call out against me personally. He said, "I need her to bench press me." Oh, Blue, you said, "Is it me, or does Chi Juyin look a bit like Femme Moran in this illustration?" Yes, I can absolutely see it, and I love that. Han Chung led his horse after Qi Juyin's as he answered. "It's a long journey, and it's hard to travel safely if we're in too much of a hurry. I thought the marshal would receive us at the southern border of Chazhou, but we didn't see you there. I've only just rushed back from Bianjun. I didn't have much time to spare." Qi Juyin turned back to Han Chung. Oh, my parents' dog is outside the door right now and she really wants to come in. But I can't let her come in because she's just going to like run ruckus around the room and then want to leave and then whine again. I'm so sorry. um I've only just rushed back from Bianjun. I didn't have much time to spare. Zhuyin turned back to Han Chung. Why are you getting off your horse? Han Chung looked around. The sun's setting. We should. Zhuyin raised her riding crop and pointed east. Keep going, and we'll reach the Sejun commandery long before midnight. There's a wider road in Sejun, so the journey will be a tad smoother. Come on, back on your horse. Han Chung had been on the road the entire day. He was exhausted. But before he could retort, Qi Juyin had spurred her horse on and left him in the dust. Qi Wei remounted and led his light cavalry to surround the ceremonial procession, then gestured Han Chung politely ahead. Chief Commander, after you. Oh, that dog right now. I don't know how much you can hear her, but she's whining. Chat is in shambles right now. Henry, you said this is like how I felt when I saw that art of Butch Bing He on a motorcycle. Oh my god. Okay, well that sounds amazing. Henry, you said the dog is me. She's reacting to Chi Chi. Oh goodness. Blue, the dog wants to see the Butch too. I will show her afterwards. Though Han Chung's position was prestigious enough in Chudu, he had no authority over the affairs of the Ministry of War or the Ministry of Revenue. The embroidered uniform guard could throw their weight around in the capital, but they posed no threat to Qi Juyin. She was the Grand Marshal of the 5 commanderies of Qidong. This was her domain, and Han Chung had no say here. Besides, even the Empress Dowager had to rely on the Qidong garrison troops now. Han Chung was seething, but he couldn't let it show. He smiled at Shi Wei, then hauled himself back on his horse to continue their journey. In the carriage, Xiangyi had returned to her senses, her heart still racing from that stunning sight. The carriage curtain swayed, and she tilted her head to look through the slim gap, catching a glimpse of Qi Juyin's back as she rode ahead. Qi Juyin was tall and slender. She must have put in special effort to dress up today. Since she was riding, she wore her hair in a neat tail instead of piled high atop her head, as was the common style in Chudu. But she still looked very fine. Without the adornment of pins and precious pearls, she appeared clean and tidy. She was pretty. Xiangyi continued to study her until Qi Juyin abruptly turned and looked back at her. And there's a scene break. They haven't even met before. This is breakneck speed U-Haul. Oh, goodness. Oh my god, this is Hualian. You're so right. You're so correct. Xiao Qige had said to send only his congratulations, but he still instructed someone to prepare a gift. Xiao Jiming prepared one as well. They had a good relationship with Qidong. Even if the situation was delicate at the moment, the sentiment remained, most especially their friendship with Qi Juyin. The wedding between Hua and Qi was the Empress Dowager's declaration of temporary victory in the tussle for power in Chudu. The Grand Secretariat would have to stabilize the heir apparent before they could continue to contend for dominance. At this moment, Xue Xiuzhuo made a wise decision. He submitted a memorial to the Grand Secretariat and requested Jiang Qingshan be transferred back to Jueshi, thereby securing Chudu's supply of grain. I don't remember, like, the role that Jiang Qingshan plays, like, from before. So I don't quite know what that's going to do to everyone's plans currently. but it doesn't sound like a good situation because I think they like needed him for something. Yao Wenyu sat in his new wheelchair and let Chao Tianya push him out the door. The weather in Suzhou had been poor lately, and with autumn rain around the corner, the scenery on the city outskirts grew ever more bleak and desolate. Yao Wenyu had been out of the sun for many days. Seeing him now, he was like a jade laid bare in the open air. Oh, Wolf, you said we haven't read him as a character before, we've only read news about him. So they talked about him, but we didn't actually, like, meet him. He didn't interact with anybody yet. It's just as you predicted. Shen Zichuan took in the vast expanse of autumn leaves and solemn stillness of the land as he stood at Yao Wenyu's side. He transferred Jiang Qingshan back to Jueshi. I really thought Jiang Qingshan would go to Huaizhou, if only to keep an eye on Suzhou. Zhou Gui, having ridden a horse today, was wearing a narrow-sleeved jacket and pants conducive to riding. He wiped sweat from his brow and said, Luoxia Pass is close to the city of Chuancheng, the hometown of the Shui clan. It'd make sense for him to worry. I didn't think he'd be willing to send Jiang Qingshan back to Jueshi. Yao Wenyu adjusted his sleeve, into which he tucked his kitten. It's a reasonable concern. Objectively, stationing Jiang Qingshan in Huaizhou would be most advantageous to Shui Shoujuo and his Shui clan. Shen Zichuan's boots crunched across the fallen leaves, then stilled. He stood, lost in thought. If Jiang Qingshan was transferred to the prefecture of Huaizhou, he could accomplish two things. Firstly, he could obstruct any trade route between Huaizhou, Suzhou, and Chazhou from taking shape. Secondly, he could both ensure the safety of Chuancheng and join them in putting pressure on Luoxia Pass and, by extension, Li Bei. If such tactics had occurred to Shen Zichuan, they had certainly occurred to Shui Shoujuo as well. Yet Shui Shoujuo had sacrificed the welfare of Chuancheng and chosen Jueshi, just as Yao Wenyu had prophesied. Shui Shoujuo put Jiang Qingshan back in his old place on the board. Shen Zichuan's mouth thinned into a grim line. This is what makes him tough to deal with. This maneuver meant not only that Shui Shoujuo would attempt to restrict Li Bei and Zhongbo's development by keeping a chokehold on the supply of grain from Jueshi, but also that he didn't give a damn about the gains and losses of the Shui clan. He harbored no selfish desires, which set him apart from the likes of Hua Siqian and Wei Huaigu. What he sought was more complex than benefits for one party or another. Jiang Qingshan's methods are pitiless and harsh, Yao Wenyu offered. He's an effective local governor. The impression people have of him in Chudu is that he's exacting down to the smallest detail. But the truth is quite the opposite. Jueshi has 13 cities, with 2 prefectures and 2 ports. It's the granary of Great Zhou in both name and reality. The Shi clan's businesses have boomed there. Even the waterways of the Hua clan in Dicheng pass through Jueshi. If the vice commander had been to Jueshi before, you'd understand that Jueshi's prosperity did not happen by chance. Yao Wenyu stroked his cat. Jiang Qingshan is an extraordinarily broad-minded individual who puts people to use, regardless of family status or social standing. He never shirks his responsibility regarding major matters of governance, but he knows not to waste his time on minor issues. He never lets go of what he ought to hold fast, and he never misjudges what he should let slip through his fingers. Oh, Zareem, I'm sorry you got interrupted. With a provincial administration commissioner like him, it's not surprising Jueshi got back on its feet as swiftly as it did after the disaster in the Xiande years. This is who Jiang Qingshan is. He considers Xue Xiuzhuo a lifelong friend because they share the same political views and ambitions. Zhou Gui nodded. I've long heard tell of the political achievements of these two. When the Grand Secretary promoted Xue Xiuzhuo to the Court of Judicial Review after Hua Siqian's coup, no one in the imperial court opposed it. The vice commander has read Xue Xiuzhuo's essays on contemporary politics, Yao Wenyu said. Does my lord remember the Grand Mentor's wish? Shen Zichuan knew this by heart. He had inherited Qi Huilian's knowledge and understood precisely what his teacher had hoped to accomplish back then. After a moment of silence, he said, to register every household of Great Zhou uniformly under the throne, to map and justly administer every acre of farmland, to consolidate taxes for the ease of the people, and to achieve a balanced treasury to serve the nation. You know, none of that sounds bad. Like, it's interesting the position that Xue Xiuzhuo is in, because, like, he's our villain, but there's certain things he's doing where I'm like, well, yeah, I get that, but then other things, I don't know. We said it, someone said it before that, like, everyone's positions are so intertwined. The politics are just a complete mess. I forgot where I was. Yao and Yu looked out at the mountains in the distance. That is exactly what Xue Xiuzhuo wishes to accomplish as well. In this, he and my teacher were both striving to the same end. Teacher had the support of Kong Qiu, Sen Yu, and the officials of common households, while Xue Xiuzhuo has the support of the industrious pragmatists, with Zhang Qingshan at the helm. He is not without supporters. But the question was, could anyone in the current Zhou Empire truly achieve such a thing? Even the yellow register system was something that had taken Qi Huilian many years to implement across the empire. Why had the Eastern Palace been framed for rebellion? Because the next step after the full-scale implementation of the census was the survey of farmlands. Misappropriation of commoners' fields was rampant in the 8 cities of Chudu. If such a policy was implemented, the noble clans would not only have to return the commoners' fields and accept their punishment according to the law, they would have to belatedly pay the land and field taxes they owed. Eliminating the crown prince was the surest way to prevent this. We're getting some more motivation for that. Similarly, Hai Liangyi had taught Li Jianheng the way he did in hopes of treating the problem at its source, cutting down to the bone to scrape away the infection. He had wanted Li Jianheng to keep a tight hold over the Grand Secretariat and wield his authority to overhaul the system from the top down. For this, he was willing to charge headfirst into the fray on Li Jianheng's behalf. But Li Jianheng simply couldn't do it. Xue Xiuzhuo had recognized this far earlier than Hai Liangyi. He had instantly abandoned Li Jianheng, along with all his hopes for this emperor, and indeed the entire Li clan. He needed a new sovereign, one who could sit quietly on the throne while he worked. This new emperor must not interfere with the Grand Secretariat, nor vacillate between sides in the struggle between the noble clans and common households. More importantly, this emperor could not be partial toward the frontier powers with all their military might, merely for the sake of some brotherly sentiment. And so he had found Li Jianting. Okay, I had questions about his motivations, and I'm already getting, like, some answers and, like, things that I hadn't really thought about before. It's also likely that I'm forgetting some of the stuff that we already knew about Xue Xiuzhuo's motivations. But, like, yeah, it seems like he shouldn't be the antagonist, and that these characters all have similar goals. But in his mind, he's like, the best way to go about the things I want to achieve is this. And so, like, I had to get rid of this emperor, I had to get rid of this guy, I had to get rid of this alliance, because to him, he personally thinks those are going to stand in the way of what he wants to do. And other people just think the same thing can be done a different way or through different means. So it's not even like we have different goals. It's like we have different ways of trying to achieve those goals. And he's trying so hard to do his way because he thinks it's the only way. Yeah. But a plan like this took too long. Chudu was changing every moment. Shen Zichuan himself was a variable. In Chudu, he was at best an abandoned piece on Xue Xiuzhuo's board, a stone that might be conveniently discarded after he dealt with Shi Hongshuan and Wei Huaigu, meant to be wiped out in that pouring rain alongside Xiao Chiye. Xue Xiuzhuo possessed not a sliver of selfishness. This was what made him such a terrifying opponent. I still think he's selfish, but in a different way. Like, he's not doing things for himself, but again, the mindset he has that, like, only his way of doing things will work feels selfish to me. But it's not like, oh, I'm after gold and riches and stuff all for myself. It's like a different kind. For instance, Xue Xiaoyi had endlessly ridiculed, mocked, and humiliated Xue Xiuzhuo. Yet Xue Xiuzhuo had made no move to end the life of his lawful eldest brother. In his eyes, Xue Xiaoyi was not important in the slightest. It made no difference to him whether Xue Xiaoyi lived or died. The family heir was like dust at his feet. He had killed Qi Huilian, but that was only because Qi Huilian was the tutor of the Emperor of Great Zhou. He had attempted to kill Yao Wenyu, but only because Yao Wenyu was an unparalleled talent. He had given both these men a chance to choose, yet both had turned him down. Letting a strategist he could not use walk free was akin to gifting the world's sharpest sword to another. Only by killing them could he protect himself from future trouble. Above the forest, a solitary wild swan goose soared across the horizon. Frost and fog gradually blanketed the landscape. It was growing chillier by the day. Chao Tianya casually covered Yao Wenyu with a thick coat. Shen Zichuan tapped his folding fan against his palm, his gaze tracking the goose across the sky on its southward migration. When Xue Xiuzhuo was teaching the heir apparent in his manner, he likely didn't expect Great Zhou would suffer such a collapse within a mere few years. Not even the greatest genius can account for every single factor or come up with an entirely foolproof strategy. The incident with the military provisions that forced Lu Guangbai to desert was an unexpected variable. Because they lost Lu Guangbai, Qidong missed their opportunity to hunt down Ce'an, and instead of delivering the fatal blow, Chudu released a tiger back to its mountain. No one could predict the twists and turns of fate, be it Lu Guangbai, Shen Zichuan, Xiao Chiye, Yao Wenyu, or any other nameless face. Heaven tasked each person with their own challenges. In staggering back to their feet after calamity, those who had once been trapped by their circumstances cast off their shackles. In turbulent times, the order of the world became tenuous. Anyone could fight for a share of the spoils. If there were those who clung to the broken fragments of ruins, then there would also be those who brandished their weapons to break through the confining walls. This was the era of corrupt ministers and scheming traitors. The fog grew thicker and rain began to fall. Fei Sheng opened an umbrella and held it over Shen Zichuan. Not long after, they made their way back. Autumn had finally arrived in Zizhou. The wind gusted through the sleeves of Shen Zichuan's robes, nearly snatching away his blue handkerchief. The handkerchief from Xiao Chiye. As Shen Zichuan grasped for it, falling leaves danced across the sky and brushed the tips of his fingers. Withered yellow leaves danced upward in the wind, where the rain pelted them back to scuttle at Xiao Chiye's feet. Gu Jin reined his horse in, waving a small flag as he shouted, "Master, the bridle path ahead has collapsed. We're trapped." As Xiao Qian mounted Snowcrest, Wu Ziyu spurred his horse forward from behind and raised his voice to be heard through the rain. Zhao Hui's troops have yet to arrive, and Tudalung Banner is 10 li from here. Hassan's cavalry is nearby. The grain wagons are too heavy. Tantai Hu wiped rainwater from his face. Unless we abandon the provisions and take a detour, Hassan's cavalry is bound to find us tonight. The front lines need these supplies, Chen Yang said. If these provisions fall into Hassan's hands, the prince is going to have a rough go of it. Chen Yang tugged at the reins, his nose and cheeks red from the cold. We can stay here, but Master has to go. They had received orders a few days ago to take a roundabout route from the homeland up to the north, taking the road past base camp first to provide supplies to Zhao Hui, then continuing on toward the front lines to replenish Xiao Fengshu's supplies. They'd been told Zhao Hui's 3 great battalions would receive them when they arrived at base camp, but Zhao Hui had not appeared. Meng couldn't carry out reconnaissance in the rainstorm. Without him, it was as though Xiao Qiye had been blindfolded. Xiao Qiye's eyes were unnaturally calm as he let the raindrops trickle down his cheeks. Turn around, he commanded. We're going to Tudalung Banner. I am sorry to say that is the end of the chapter. So, stuff about to happen. Not exactly a cliffhanger, but kinda feels like a rough place to stop. But, you know, we have for 2 days, exactly. We will be back on Wednesday. Henry, not blindfolded. No, it is not as bad as Case File. It's fine. It's all good. So, when we come back on Wednesday, we will be on chapter 151, which is called Roundup. I'm so glad to be back. Wow. We have side gays and we have side lesbians now. Like, what a great momentous moment. Oh, thank you, Henry. When did I get up to almost 1,000 subs? I'm still fighting for that last 60 or some odd subs that I need to actually get to 1,000. I'm so close, and it's driving me nuts that I'm so close, but I'm not there yet. Yeah. Thank you. I will get there. I'll get there eventually. I need 59 more. Awesome. Okay. Ugh, it's so good. I miss this so much. I remember now how difficult it is to read some of the extremely long sentences with long titles in them. But, like, I'm having a blast. It's so good. Ugh, the writing is so good. The plotting is so good, even though I have to reread everything to really understand what's happening. But I feel slightly less confused than I expected to feel right now. Like, considering how much I don't really remember from before, I'm like, okay, we're picking up here. I kind of know what's been going on. So that's good. Henry, we have the same hoodie on right now. That's awesome. I love that. Oh, you said I'm so glad I've read this volume. This definitely is the kind of thing, if I was watching someone else stream this, I would definitely read ahead. Because it would be confusing to just hear it and take it in that way for the first time. But I've put myself up to this, so I must endure. So, and I can't get over the cover. I can't get over the art that we saw today. It's all so good. Oh, goodness. So I'm gonna go. I will see y'all again on Wednesday. Thank you so much for coming to the stream. Please like the stream. Bye.